Sri Caitanya Caritamrta, and we're continuing with Adi-lila chapter 10. Very ecstatic description of all the branches and sub-branches of the great Caitanya tree. So today, yes, Monday, 21st August, Thursday, 21st August 2025. Agyan Timirandasya Gyananjala Shalakaya Chakshu Unmilitam Jena Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha Gurave Gauda Chandraya Radhikaya Dadaliye Krishnaya Krishna Bhaktaya Tarabhaktaya Namo Namaha Sri Chaitanya Manobhishtam Stapitam Jena Bhutale Swayam Rupa Kadamayam Tadati Swapadantikam Adadinastanandantiya Idam Yache Puna Puna Srimad Rupam Bhajamboda Dulishyam Janma Janmani Priya Sarupe, Daita Sarupe, Prema Sarupe, Sahajavi Rupe, Nijana Rupe, Prabhuveka Rupe, Tatana Rupe, Swabala Sarupe Anapita Chirim Chirat Kuruna Varatinokolo Samarpaitam Unnata Ujvala Rasam Swabhakti Shriyam Haripurata Sundaradati Kadam Basadapita Sada Kridare Kandares Buddhatu Vasachinandanaha Yam Prabhajantamana Petyam Apete Krityam Dvaipaino Viraha Katara Juhava Putre Titam Matayo Tarabogedustam Sarvutam Hridimunimanatoshmi Bhaktya Vihina Aparada Lakshay Shiptascha Karmadi Tarangamadye Kripa Maitvam Sharanam Prapana Brinde Namaste Charanara Bindam Bhajami Radham Aravinda Netram Smarami Radham Madhurashmitasyam Vadami Radham Karuna Baradram Tatom Manasti Katyana Kapi Tavaivasmi Najivami Tvaivina Iti Vinaya Radhe Tvam Naivam Charanantikam. I'm first of all offering millions and millions of Dandavat Pranams unto the lotus feet of my beloved Gurudev, Nitya-lila Prabhishta Om Asto Tarasara Shishimad Srila Bhaktivedanta Narayan Goswami Maharaj. And I'm offering the same again millions and millions of times unto the lotus feet of our beloved Nitya-lila Prabhishta Om Asto Tarasara Shishimad Srila Bhaktivedanta Swami Srila Prabhupada. And my Dandavat Pranams to our dearmost Srila Krishna's Kaviraj Goswami, and to all our divine Rupanuga Guru Varga, and all the Vaishnava and Vaishnavi devotees of the Lord, my Dandavat Pranams to all of you. Vansha Kalpa Tarubhyascha, Kripa Sindhubevacha, Patitanam Pavnibhyo, Vaishnavebhyo, Namo Namaha. So we've reached text 80 of our Adi-lila chapter 10, the branches of the Caitanya tree. Jaya Jaya Shri Chaitanya Jaya Nityananda Shri Advaita Chandra Jaya Gaura Bhakta Vrinda Kulingrama Vasi Satya Raja Ramananda Yadunatha Purushottam Shankara Vidyananda. Translation: Satyaraj, Ramananda, Yadunath, Purushottam, Sankar and Vidyananda all belonged to the 20th branch. They were inhabitants of the village known as Kulinyagram. Vaninatha Vasi Adu Yata Gramijan Sabe Caitanya Pritya Caitanya Pranidan. Translation: all the inhabitants of Kulinyagram village, headed by Vaninath Vasu, were servants of Lord Chaitanya, who was their only life and wealth. By the way, last class I forgot the name of the town, which is actually quite close to where Raghunath Das Goswami has his birthplace. We were talking about Nityananda and the goldsmiths. They're called Suvarna Vaniks. And Saptagram is the name of that village, those collection of 7 villages, Saptagram, which is below Shantipur. So I had forgotten the name of that village last time, so I just remembered to say it now. Text 82. Prabhu kahe Kolinya grama yehe kukuru kura se mora priya anya jana rahu dura. Translation. The Lord said, what to speak of others, even a dog in the village of Kolinyagram is my friend, is my dear friend. Text 83. Kolinyagramira bhagya kahana na yaya sukara karaya doma seha Krishna gaya. No one can describe the fortunate position of Kolinyagram. It is so sublime that even sweepers who tend their hogs there also chant the Hare Krishna Mahamantra. Text 84. Anupama Vallabha Sri Rupa Sanatan Etina Saka Vrikshera Pachchima Sarvotama. Translation. On the western side, where were the 43rd, 44th, and 45th branches, Sri Sanatan, Sri Rupa, and Anupam. They were the best of all. Purport. Sri Anupam was the father of Srila Jiva Goswami and younger brother of Sri Sanatan Goswami and Sri Rupa Goswami. His former name was Ballabha, but after Lord Chaitanya met him, he gave him the name Anupam. Because of working in the Muslim government, these three brothers were given the title Mulik. They didn't have any choice, we should understand. The Nawab Hussain Shah of Bengal at that time knew these brothers were extraordinarily gifted in languages and intelligence, and one astrologer had informed the Nawab that they would bring great fortune to his kingdom. So he, in English we say press-ganged, which means he told them that if they didn't come and work in his government, he would harass the Vaishnavas. He knew they were Vaishnavas and he accepted that, and they were able to practice their Vaishnava assemblies, etc., even working for the Muslim government. But it wasn't that they voluntarily went and worked for the government. They were blackmailed. If you don't come, we are going to persecute the Vaishnavas. So they did it in support of the Vaishnavas. This is the reason why these three illustrious brothers worked for the Muslims. Because of working in the Muslim government, these three brothers were given the title Mulik. Our personal family is connected with the Muliks in Mahatma Gandhi Road in Calcutta, and we often used to visit their Radha Govinda temple. So this is Bhaktivedanta Swami Prabhupada sharing his experiences of this title Malik with us. They belong to the same family as we do. Our family Gotra, or original genealogical line, is the Gautam Gotra, or line of disciples from Gautam Muni, and our surname is Day. But due to their accepting the post of Zamindars in the Muslim government, they received the title Mulik. Similarly, Rupa, Sanatan, and Ballabha were also given the title Mulik. Mulik means Lord, just as the English government gives rich and respectable persons the title Lord. So the Muslims gave the title Mulik to rich, respectable families that have intimate connections with the government. Actually, their Rupa, Sanatan, and Anupam, their grandfather and great-grandfather also worked in the government, but in Karnataka in South India. So they had in their families a history of that government work. Thus the title Mulik is found not only among the Muslims, but also among the Hindu aristocracy. This title is not restricted to a particular family, but is given to different families and castes. So understand, it's a title, is Mulik. The qualifications for receiving it are wealth and respectability. And the three brothers were certainly wealthy by the wages of the Muslim government. Sanatan Goswami and Rupa Goswami belonged to the Bharatvarj Gotra,
which indicates that they belonged either to the family or disciplic succession of Bharadvaj Muni. As members of the Krishna consciousness movement, we belong to the family or disciplic succession of Saraswati Goswami, and thus we are known as Sarasvatas. Obeisances are therefore offered to the spiritual master as Saraswat Deva, or a member of the Saraswat family. Namaste Saraswati Deve. Our mission is to broadcast the cult of Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, Gaura Vani Pracharine, and to fight with impersonalists and voidists, Nirvishesh Sunyavari Paschatya Desha Tarine. This was also the occupational duty of Sanatana Goswami, Rupa Goswami, and Anupam Goswami. The genealogical table of Sanatana Goswami, Rupa Goswami, and Ballabha Goswami can be traced back to the 20th century, Sagabda, when a gentleman by the name of Sarvagyan appeared in a very rich and opulent Brahmin family in the province of Karnataka. He had two sons named Anirudera Rupeshwara and Harihara. They were both bereft of their kingdoms and thus obliged to reside in the highlands. The son of Rupeshwara, who was named Padmanabha, moved to a place in Bengal known as Naihati on the bank of the Ganges. There he had 5 sons, of whom the youngest, Mukunda, had a well-behaved son named Kurmadev, who was the father of Rupa, Sanatan, and Ballabha. Kurmadev lived in Patyabad, an area bordering Bakalanchandra Dweep in East Bengal, now Bangladesh. The present-day village of Prembagh, which lies near Rameshwar in the Jalasore district of Bangladesh, is said by many to be the site of Kurmadev's house, the original house. Of his many sons, 3 took to the path of Vaishnavism. Later, Sri Ballabha and his elder brothers, Sri Rupa and Sanatan, came to Chandradweep in the village of Malda district in Bengal, known as Ramakeli. It is in this village that Sri Jiva Goswami took birth, accepting Ballabha as his father. Because of engaging in the service of the Muslim government, the 3 brothers received the title Mulik. When Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu visited the village of Ramakeli, he met Ballabha there. By the way, this village, we can go today to Ramakeli from Navadvip. It's about a 6-hour journey. There's a very good road there, like a new fresh highway. And you still can sense the grandeur of that place today. This was the capital of the governor of Bengal, Hussein Shah, and they have huge buildings in beautiful stone, just the ruins of them, the foundations of them. And you can also at that place see the jail where Sanatana Goswami was incarcerated. It's a very large, round building, and there's only one door into it, and you can still see the shackles on the wall around it. And right next to it is the place where they would behead the prisoners. So the prisoners in the prison would hear the cries of those being executed, just to put some more fear into them. This is what the Muslims were like. But you can get a mood of the immensity of that city. That was like a city. It was the capital. So this is where Rup, Sanatan, and Ballabha had their lives. They had given their lives to that government, working for the government there. Because of engaging in the service of the Muslim government, the 3 brothers received the title Mulik. When Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu visited the village of Ramkeli, he met Ballabha there. Later, Sri Rupa Goswami, after meeting Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, resigned from government service And when he went to Vrindavan, to meet Lord Chaitanya, Vallabha accompanied him. The meeting of Rupa Goswami and Vallabha with Chaitanya Mahaprabhu at Allahabad is described in the Adi-lila chapter 19. This is called Rup Shiksha. It begins from chapter 19 of the Adi-lila. Actually, it is to be understood from the statement of Sanatana Goswami that Sri Rupa Goswami and Vallabha went to Vrindavan under the instructions of Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. First, they went to Mathura, where they met a gentleman named Subudhi Roy. We're going to hear about Subudhi Roy. Subudhi Roy previously was a king, and there was a Muslim working for him, and there was a time when Subudhi Roy saw it necessary to whip this Muslim. And later, due to circumstances, this Muslim came to power. And the Muslim's wife was questioning the scars on the back of this Muslim, her husband. And he described, oh, Subudhi Roy made this. So the wife agitated the Muslim. He became in charge then to take away his caste. So he was sprinkled with impure water, which means he's no longer standing in his caste as a Hindu, that actually he's been affected by the Muslims now. I'm not sure the exact way they do it, but something to implicate him fully as being like a Muslim. And then he comes to, he asks many pundits what he should do now. He's been cast into the Muslim society by this act. I think it's putting water on him. And the holy water, yeah. And then many pundits, Hindu pundits, tell him he should drink hot ghee. In other words, he should commit suicide. And then Subudhi Roy becomes bewildered and confused, and he goes to Mahaprabhu. And Mahaprabhu tells him, you should chant Hare Krishna, go to Mathura, leave this place of Bengal, go to Mathura, because there's too much reputation you have here. Go to Mathura and serve the Vaishnavas. So he's an older man, so he goes to Mathura and he collects wood from the forest and sells it as a living. He was a very wealthy person previously, but all his wealth had been taken away. So he does this for a living and serving the Vaishnavas. So in particular, he served Rupa Goswami and Vallabha when they came, and he also served Sanatana Goswami when they came. So first they went to Mathura, where they met a gentleman named Subudhi Roy, who maintained himself by selling dry fuel wood. He was very pleased to meet Sri Rupa and Anupam, and he showed them the 12 forests of Vrindavan. Thus they lived in Vrindavan for 1 month, and then again went to search for Sanatana Goswami. So this person, Subudhi Roy, I think he will be mentioned here again. Following the course of the Ganges, they reached Allahabad, or Prayag Tirtha, but because Sanatana Goswami had come there by a different road, they did not meet him. And when Sanatana Goswami came to Mathura, he was informed of the visit of Rupa Goswami and Anupam by Subudhi Roy. So Subudhi Roy again meets Sanatana. When Rupa Goswami and Anupam met Chaitanya Mahaprabhu at Varanasi, they heard about Sanatana Goswami's travels from him, and thus they returned to Bengal, adjusted their affairs with the state, and on the order of Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, went to see the Lord at Jagannath Puri. So I've described before the travels. They came from Ramakeli. They met the Lord when the Lord was coming back from Vrindavan. The Lord had left Puri, tried to go to Vrindavan through Ramakeli initially in 1515, and then Sanatana Goswami had advised him to come back because he shouldn't go to Vrindavan with such a big crowd of people. So Mahaprabhu listened and he came back. He came back to Jagannath Puri, where he remained for some months, 8 or 9 months, and then again he set out of Vrindavan, but this time to the Jharkhand forest, which comes out near Banaras or Varanasi and Prayag. So Mahaprabhu visits these two places for a short time, then goes to Vrindavan, stays for 10 days. He's with his servant Balabhadra, Bhattacharya, and then he returns to Prayag. And that time when he returns, that's when he meets Rupa and Anupam. And then he directs them, because they've just come from Ramkeli, he directs them to go to Vrindavan. And then they go to Vrindavan. And then Mahaprabhu continues, and after Prayag, you will see on the map, next comes south, is Varanasi, or Banaras. And that's where Mahaprabhu meets Sanatana Goswami. And he stays there for 2 months at the house of Chandrasekhar and Tapana Mishra. And then he instructs Sanatana Goswami at the end of that time, then he should also go to Vrindavan. So when Sanatana Goswami is going to Vrindavan, Rupa Goswami is coming back from Vrindavan, searching for him, thinking that they'll meet on the road, but Sanatana Goswami goes by a different road to Rupa and Vallabha. So they miss each other. And then Rupa Goswami sets all his household affairs in order in Bengal, and then he travels down to Jagannath Puri. And then he stays there for about 10 months. Meanwhile, Sanatana Goswami has been in Mathura and Vrindavan, and then he travels to Jagannath Puri through the Jharkhand forest. And Rupa Goswami returns through Bengal. So again, they miss each other. And then Sanatana Goswami stays in Jagannath Puri also for about 10 months. So first of all, Rupa Goswami is staying there, and then Sanatana Goswami is staying there. So this is how they got the association of Mahaprabhu in these 3 instances. In Ramkeli for about, we can say, 10 minutes, and in about Sanatana Goswami 2 months in Varanasi, and Rupa and Vallabha about 10 days in Prayag at the Ashwamedha Ghat, and then in Puri for about 10 months. So we should know this very simple travel route of the Goswamis. In the year 1436, Shagabda. So the Shagabda is the Bengali year, and it's
also a Sanskrit word.
and it's 78 years difference between the Christian year. Yeah. So it's 1514 in general terms. The youngest brother, Anupam, died and went back home, back to Godhead. He went to the abode in the spiritual sky where Sri Ramchandra is situated. The 2 brothers often tried to convince Anupam to put his heart in Krishna Lila, but he was like Murari Gupta that we've already discussed, and he couldn't take his head away. He had sold his heart and self to Lord Ramchandra and simply couldn't bring himself to come to Radha and Krishna in Vrindavan. So Lord Ram manifested so many thousands of years previously, and his influence was so great that so many personalities completely surrendered themselves to him. And Anupam was one of those. So it's described here that he goes back to Ramachandra because he couldn't actually come to Mahaprabhu and support his pastimes in opening out Braja Prem and Braja Dham like Sanatana and Rupa were doing. At Jagannath Puri, Sri Rupa Goswami informed Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu of this incident of Vallabha leaving his body. Vallabha was a great devotee of Sri Ramchandra. Therefore, he could not seriously consider the worship of Radha Govinda according to the instructions of Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. Yet he directly accepted Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu as an incarnation of the Supreme Personality of Godhead, Ramchandra. In the Bhakti Ratnakara, there is the following statement. Vallabha was given the name Anupam by Sri Gaur Sundar. but he was always absorbed in the devotional service of Lord Ramchandra. He did not know anyone but Lord Ramchandra, but he knew that Caitanya Goshani was the same Lord Ramchandra. In the Gaura Ganadesh Deepika 180, Sri Rupa Goswami is described to be Manjari, actually not Gopi, Saki, named Sri Rupa Manjari. In the Bhakti Ratnakara, there is a list of the books Rupa Goswami compiled. Of all his books, the following 16 are very popular among the Vaishnavas: Hamsaduta, Uddhav Sandesh, Krishna Janma Tirthi Vidhi, and Radha Krishna Ganadesh Deepika, Brihat and Lagu, minor editions. Stavamala, Vidagdha Madhav, Lalita Madhav, Danakeli Kumudi, and Bhakti Rasamrita Sindhu. This is the most celebrated book by Sri Rupa Goswami. Ujjvala Nilamani is like the sequel to Bhakti Rasamrita Sindhu. Bhakti Rasamrita Sindhu will go up to the stage of Bhav, but the consideration of Prem is described in Ujjvala Nilamani. Akyata Chandrika, Mathura Mahima 14, Padyavali 15, Nataka Chandrika, and 16, Lagu Bhagavatamrita. Sri Rupa Goswami gave up all family connections, joined the renounced order of life, and divided his money, giving 50% to the Brahmanas and Vaishnavas and 25% to his Kutumba family members, and keeping 25% for personal emergencies, which actually helped out Sanatana Goswami escape the jail. He met Haridas Thakur in Jagannath Puri. He stays with Haridas Thakur at the Siddha Bakul tree, where he also met Lord Chaitanya and his other associates. Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu used to praise the handwriting of Rupa Goswami, say it looked like pearls on the pages. Srila Rupa Goswami could compose verses according to the desires of Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. That's why Narottam has quoted this verse, Sri Chaitanya Manobishtam, knew the heart, the inner intention of Mahaprabhu to give Braja Prem. And by his direction, he wrote 2 books named Lalit Madhav and Vidagdha Madhav. Lord Chaitanya desired the 2 brothers, Sanatana Goswami and Rupa Goswami, to publish many books in support of the Vaishnava religion. When Sanatana Goswami met Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, the Lord advised him to go to Vrindavan. They were both advised to go to Vrindavan. Sri Sanatana Goswami is described in the Gauraganadesh Deepika 181. He was formerly known as Rati Manjari, or sometimes Lavanga Manjari. In the Bhakti Ratnakara, it is stated that his spiritual master, Vidya Vachaspati, sometimes stayed in the village of Ramkeli, and Sanatana Goswami studied all the Vedic literatures from him. He was so devoted to his spiritual master that this cannot be described. According to the Vedic system, if someone sees a Muslim, he must perform rituals to atone for the meeting. Sanatana Goswami always associated with Muslim kings. Not only Muslim kings, he was the prime minister. He had the name Sadiq Malik, which actually means like a small king. He was the prime minister. Not giving much attention to the Vedic injunctions, he used to visit the houses of Muslim kings, and thus he considered himself to have been converted into a Muslim. Of course, he was never converted into a Muslim. He was a Vaishnava. And if you go to Ramkeli today, you can see the place where he lived in Ramkeli. It's now a temple, and you can see the deities that he had in Ramkeli while he was serving as the Prime Minister. It's modern Gopal. Very, very beautiful deities are there. And just behind the modern Gopal, or maybe it's modern Mohan, modern Gopal or modern Mohan. Behind there's a kund that he called Radha Kund. And then there is Shama Kund. And the whole of Braj was in a garden form, like a replica of Vrindavan. And he would live there, Sanatana Goswami, and he would have many Vaishnavas come, and they would have assemblies with Bhagavatam, etc. And when he, it'll be described a little bit further on here. And Sanatana Goswami studied all the Vedic literatures from him. He was so devoted to his spiritual master, this cannot be described. According to the Vedic system, yes, if someone sees a Muslim, he must perform rituals to atone for the meeting. Yes, I said that. And thus he considered himself to have been converted into a Muslim. He was therefore always very humble and meek, just like Haridas Thakur. Haridas Thakur was a Muslim. Not a Muslim by faith, but a Muslim by birth. When Sanatana Goswami presented himself before Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, he said, I am always in associate with lower class people, and my behavior is therefore very abominable. So we see the mood of Mahaprabhu. He would actually solicit these personalities from the lower, apparently from the lower class. They weren't from the lower class. They're eternal manjaris of the spiritual world of Sri Radhika directly. But in their material lives, they appeared to be of a lower caste or contaminated by a lower caste. So Mahaprabhu had no restrictions for caste. So we should understand today that Bhaktivedanta Swami Prabhupada was recruiting so many people from the Western world who were even lower than dog eaters practically. So there should be, it's very similar what he was doing also. He was broadcasting this Chaitanya cult without any discrimination. He actually belonged to a respectable Brahmin family, but because he considered his behavior to be abominable, he did not try to place himself among the Brahmanas, but always remained among people of the lower castes. He wrote the Hari Bhakti Vilas and the Vaishnava Toshani, which is a commentary on the 10th canto of Srimad Bhagavatam. In the year 1476 Shakabda, which is 1554, Mahaprabhu leaves in 1534, he completed the Brihat Vaishnava Toshani commentary of Srimad Bhagavatam. In the year 1582, he finished the Lagu Toshani. Also, it doesn't mention here, but one of his greatest books is the Brihat Bhagavatamrita, which we have available now in English. We have available 2 volumes from our Sangha, and there are 3 volumes available from ISKCON. So it's a most incredible book describing the journey of Gopkumar to that highest spiritual realm. And I would advise all the devotees, by hook or by crook, to really, really read this book. It is most magnificent. The first volume is Narada Muni searching for who is receiving the most mercy from the Lord. And he starts with the individual worshipping a shalagram. Then he goes to a king who's worshipping many shalagrams. And then he goes to Indradev. And then he goes to Shivji, he goes to Hanuman, he goes to Jagannath Puri, he goes to so many different places, searching for who is receiving the most mercy. He comes finally to the Yadus, Krishna's own family. And then he comes to Uddhav, like this, searching for Krishna's mercy. And then it goes into the second volume about the amazing journey of Gopkumar, who is given the Gopal mantra. And this Gopal mantra is taking him through all the different planetary systems. And by nature, he's born in Govardhan. He's a cowherd boy. And he goes through all the different planetary systems. He goes through Ayodhya, he goes through Dwarka. And finally, by Narad's arrangement, he gets inspired to desire to go to Goloka Vrindavan. And there he meets Krishna in his eternal form of Sarup, is his name. And this is the most beautiful description of Krishna meeting his long-lost servant. But it's an incredible description of traveling through all the different lokas. And all the devotees should be familiar with this book, Brihat Bhagavatamrita. Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu taught his principles through 4 chief followers. Among them, Ramananda Roy is exceptional, for through him, the Lord taught how a devotee can completely vanquish the power of Cupid. That means sex life. By Cupid's power, as soon as one sees a beautiful woman, he is conquered by her beauty. Sri Ramananda Rai, however, vanquished Cupid's pride. Indeed, while rehearsing the Jagannath Vallabha Nataka, he personally directed extremely beautiful young girls in dancing. Ramananda Rai, he writes the Jagannath Vallabha Nataka, and it involves young teenage dancing girls for the pleasure of Lord Jagannath. So he would engage in cleansing them, decorating them, etc. But he was never affected by their youthful beauty. Sri Ramananda Rai personally bathed these girls, touching them and washing them with his own hands, yet he remained calm and passionless as a great devotee should be. It's described like a piece of wood. He absolutely had no passionate desire whatsoever. Lord Chaitanya certified that this was possible only for Ramananda Rai, who is of course ultimately Vishakadevi. Similarly, Damodar Pandit was notable for his objectivity as a critic. He did not even spare Chaitanya Mahaprabhu from his criticism. I think I mentioned this story before, of the young Brahmin boy who would come to Mahaprabhu, but his mother was a Brahmini widow, very attractive, and Damodar Pandit was very unhappy that Mahaprabhu was showing affection to this young, beautiful child, whose mother was a very beautiful widow, Brahmin widow, and he thought people would talk. So he chastised Mahaprabhu for this situation. And a couple of days later, Mahaprabhu sent him to Sachimata, from Jagannath Puri up to Navadvip. This also cannot be imitated by anyone else. Haridas Thakur is exceptional for his forbearance, because although he was beaten with canes in 22 marketplaces, he was nevertheless tolerant. He was only praying for the welfare of these Muslim tormentors who were beating him. Mahaprabhu came and wanted to sever their heads, but he heard the prayers of Haridas praying for their forgiveness, so he was unable to do it. So in the Satparya pastimes in Navadvip at the Yogpit, when he's revealing all the Nityasiddha Parikar's previous births, Haridas comes in front and he says, remember when you were being beaten in those markets? I wanted to cut their heads off, but because you were praying for their well-being, I couldn't. But I took all the whip marks on my own back. And he turns to face the devotees and shows them his back, and it's full of those whip marks. Similarly, Sri Sanatana Goswami, although he belonged to a most respectable Brahmin family, was exceptional for his humility and meekness. Mahaprabhu has so much affection for Sanatana Goswami, which will be revealed. Sanatana Goswami's Shiksha begins from verse Adi-lila chapter 20 to 25. Those last 5 chapters of Adi-lila are devoted to Sanatan Shiksha. So we have Rup Shiksha just before that in the 19th chapter of Adi-lila. Then 20 to 25 is Sanatan Shiksha. In the Adi-lila chapter 19, the device adopted by Sanatana Goswami to get free from the government service is described. Yes, his escaping the Nawab of Bengal. He served a notice of sickness to the Nawab, the Muslim governor, but actually he was studying Srimad Bhagavatam with Brahmanas at his home. The Nawab received information of this through a royal physician, and he immediately went to see Sanatana Goswami to discover his intentions. The Nawab requested Sanatana to accompany him on an expedition to Orissa. He wanted to go and invade Orissa, and King Prataparudra was the king of Orissa, who was a well-wisher of Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. And the king, this Nawab, Muslim king, wanted to attack him. But when Sanatana Goswami refused, the Nawab ordered that he be imprisoned. When Rupa Goswami left home, he wrote a note for Sanatana Goswami informing him of some money that he had entrusted to a local grocer. Sanatana Goswami took advantage of this money to bribe the Turkish jail keeper and get free from detention. Then he left for Benares to meet Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, bringing with him only one servant, whose name was Ishan. So it's described how at that time Sanatana Goswami, he had to cross the raging Ganga river but he couldn't swim. Many Bengalis can't actually swim. And a crocodile came and intimated his submission to Sanatana Goswami. So Sanatana Goswami and Ishan, they get on the back of the crocodile and they go across. The crocodile is the carrier of Ganga Devi. When you see a picture of Ganga Devi, she's always riding on a crocodile. So Ganga Devi herself sent her own carrier to carry these personalities, great personalities, in the service of Mahaprabhu across the Ganga. And then, then he left for Benares to meet Mahaprabhu, bringing with him only one service. On the way, they stopped at a sarai, or hotel. And when the hotel keeper found out that Ishan had some gold coins, because he was an astrologer, or he had an astrologer working for him, and he whispered in his ear, oh, this man coming here, he's got 8 gold coins. He planned to kill both Sanatana Goswami and Ishan. Found out that Ishan had some gold coins with him and planned to kill both Sanatana Goswami and Ishan to take away the coins. Later, Sanatana Goswami saw that although the hotel keeper did not know them, he was being especially attentive to their comfort. Sanatana Goswami was an incredibly wise personality from the government. He could figure out a person's intention very, very quickly. He'd been trained. He was a very astute personality. And he had that nature to immediately detect a person's real intentions, because later on, it's described when he would do the Govardhan Parikrama, unlike Raghunath Das, would do the Govardhan Parikrama very, very quickly, just in an hour or so. Very quickly he would go around. But Sanatana Goswami sometimes would take days, because he would stop at each of the villages and speak with the local inhabitants about their marriages, their children, this and that and the other. And he's the acharya for sambandha, relationship. So he had that mood always. Sanatana Goswami was like that. So he had that capacity to perceive that this hotel owner was showing him so much deference. Later, Sanatana Goswami saw that although the hotel keeper did not know them, he was being especially attentive to their comfort. Therefore, he concluded that Ishan was secretly carrying some money, and that the hotel keeper was aware of this, and therefore planned to kill them for it. So that's incredibly astute, that he realized that. Otherwise, he would have been killed by the hotel owner. Upon being questioned by Sanatana Goswami, Ishan admitted that indeed he had money with him. He actually said he had 7 gold coins, but he keeps one for himself. We'll hear later. Admitted he had money with him, and immediately Sanatana Goswami took the money, 7 gold coins, and gave it to the hotel keeper, requesting him to help him get through the jungle. Thus, with the help of the hotel keeper, who was also the chief of the thieves, the dacoits, of that territory, Sanatana Goswami crossed over the Hazipur mountains, which are presently known as Hazirbags. He then met his brother-in-law, Shrikant. So they were married, the Goswamis, but we don't hear anything about their family lives, because they left their family lives completely behind. Their families were non-devotees, that's why we don't hear anything about them. So if it's his brother-in-law, that means either his sister this is his brother-in-law who is through his sister's marriage, or it's his brother-in-law through his own marriage, who requested that he stay with him. Sanatana, because Shrikant was a very wealthy man, he was there trading horses. He'd brought many horses to this township for sale. He was working for the government. Sanatana Goswami refused, but before they parted, Shrikant gave him a valuable blanket. Somehow or other, Sanatana Goswami reached Varanasi and met Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu at the house of Chandrasekhar. By the order of the Lord, Sanatana Goswami was cleanly shaved, of his dress changed, and his dress changed to that of a mendicant. Previously, he'd still been looking like a Muslim or Babaji. He put old garments on of Tapana Mishra. He was offered a dhoti and cloth, etc., but he refused. He said, no, just bring me one of your old cloths. And he tore that old cloth into 2, and he had one around his waist and another over his top. And this is traditionally what they wore. Mahaprabhu was very pleased with this. But he still maintained his blanket, which Mahaprabhu indicated, and then he went and gave his blanket away. Mahaprabhu. But these are all indications of their renounced characteristics and their renounced moods. They were going to Vrindavan, giving up their entire lives to the service of Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. Somehow or other, Sanatana Goswami reached Varanasi and met everything. He put on old garments of Tapana Mishra and took prasadam at the house of a Maharashtrian Brahmana. Then in discourses with Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, the Lord himself explained everything about devotional service to Sanatana Goswami. In 2 months, 2 months is a long time to be with the Supreme Lord. Completely, there were practically no other devotees, just Chandrasekhar and Tapana Mishra and this Maharashtrian Brahmana. So they would spend so much time together. 2 months, a long time. And during this time, Mahaprabhu had such, because when Mahaprabhu first meets Sanatana Goswami, it's described, he was all dressed as like a Muslim. But Mahaprabhu calls him into his place and he cleans his own body with his own hands. He wipes the dust from his body and so on. And he's cleansing his body. He has so much love for Sanatana Goswami. Then in discourses with Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, the Lord himself explained everything about devotional service to Sanatana Goswami. He advised Sanatana Goswami to write books on devotional service, including a book of directions for Vaishnava activities and to excavate the lost places of pilgrimage in Vrindavan. When Sanatana Goswami reaches, he accesses many ancient maps of the area and he studies all the maps and very diligently does so much research to try and relocate where were the original temples that Brajanaba, who was the grandson, the great-grandson of Krishna, who established all these temples in Vrindavan. And he very diligently worked to discover and ultimately he discovers where the modern Mohan temple was. And that's actually where he has his place. In Vrindavan, that's where he was staying. Lord Chaitanya gave him his blessings to do all this work and also explained to Sanatana Goswami the import of the Atmarama verse in 61 different angles of vision. There's a very beautiful section of this Sanatana Shiksha. Sanatana Goswami went to Vrindavan by the main road, and when he reached Mathura, he met Subudhi Roy. Then he returned to Jagannath Puri through Jharikanda, this is what I've already said, the Madhya Pradesh jungle, and there he contracted a skin disease of oozing pusses on his body, which is part of the pastime that was taking place in Puri. At Jagannath Puri, he decided to give his body by falling down beneath the wheel of the Jagannath Rath, because Mahaprabhu was constantly embracing him and the pus from his sores would come on the body of Mahaprabhu. And Sanatana Goswami was very unhappy about that. Mahaprabhu's affection for Sanatana Goswami was so strong, and he would embrace him every time. Even Sanatana Goswami would run away. Mahaprabhu was much bigger than Sanatana and would catch him and embrace him tightly, so all the pus would come on his body. And later on, Mahaprabhu describes that this pus feels like absolute nectar to him. And if he wasn't doing this, then he would be considering the bodily platform. Mahaprabhu was not considering the bodily platform. He was considering the spirit soul of Lavanga Manjari. This is the internal identity of Sanatana Goswami. So that's why Sanatana Goswami wanted to give up his life, because he could only think of this. Then Sanatana Goswami met Haridas Thakur. He was staying at Siddhabakur because Haridas Thakur was a Muslim by birth. So Sanatana Goswami is also thinking he's a Muslim by association. So he would stay with Haridas Thakur, and they wouldn't go to the Jagannath temple. They would just see the spire from where they were and offer their pranams there. Goswami met Haridas Thakur and heard about the disappearance of Anupam, because Rupa Goswami had been there before Sanatana Goswami. Sanatana observed the etiquette of Jagannath's temple by going along the beach to visit Lord Chaitanya. although it was extremely hot due to the sun, he would get blisters on his feet rather than walk in the streets where the Paka Jagannath Brahmins were. And instead he took the beach. And if you've been to Jagannath Puri, you know the beach gets like hot coals in the summer. So he walked that route and got blisters on his feet. Mahaprabhu was very touched by that. It's an indication of his following the etiquette very carefully. That's why he was qualified to write the book, this Hari Bhakti Vilas about etiquette. And then Sanatana Goswami, he asks Jagadananda, he requested Jagadananda Prabhu to give him permission to return to Vrindavan. Sanatana Goswami is requesting Jagadananda to give him permission. But Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu praised the character of Sanatana Goswami and he embraced Sanatana, accepting his body as spiritual. Mahaprabhu is very angry with Jagadananda Pandit for instructing Sanatana Goswami. He claims in this conversation that we'll hear about in this Caitanya Caritamrta that Jagadananda Pandit is actually very much lower in Mahaprabhu's estimation than Sanatana Goswami. And Jagadananda should not be instructing Sanatana Goswami. Lord Chaitanya, and at this time, Lord Chaitanya praises the character of Sanatana Goswami and he embraced Sanatana, accepting his body as spiritual. Sanatana Goswami was ordered by Chaitanya Mahaprabhu to live in Jagannath Puri for 1 year. So 1 year, 10 months is described like that. When he returned to Vrindavan, after that time, he again met Rupa Goswami. This is after Rupa Goswami has returned. They both returned then. And both brothers remained in Vrindavan to execute the orders of Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. The place where Sri Rupa Goswami and Sanatana Goswami formerly lived has now become a place of pilgrimage. It is generally known as Gupta Vrindavan or Hidden Vrindavan and is situated about 8 miles south of English Bazaar. I think that means Loy Bazaar, I'm not sure. There the following places are still visited. 1, the temple of Sri Madan Mohan deity. We all know where that is on the Parikrama trail. And Keli Kadamba tree, under which Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu met Sanatana Goswami at night. And Rupa Shagar, a large pond excavated by Sri Rupa Goswami. A society named Ramakeli Samskar Samiti was established in 1924 to repair the temple and renovate the pond. So Bhaktivedanta Swami Prabhupada is giving us some history here. So these are about the 2 brothers. Text 85. Tanra Madhya Rupa Sanatan Bhada Shaka Anupama Jiva Rajendradi Upasaka. Translation. Among these branches, Rupa and Sanatan were principal. Anupam, Jiva Goswami and others, headed by Rajendra, were their sub-branches. Purport. In the Gaura Ganadesh Deepika 195, it is said that Srila Jiva Goswami was formerly Vilas Manjari, Gopi. From his very childhood, Jiva Goswami was greatly fond of Srimad Bhagavatam. He later came to Navadvip to study Sanskrit and take shelter of Nityananda at that time. And following in the footsteps of Sri Nityananda Prabhu, he circumambulated the entire Navadvip Dham with Nityananda. After visiting Navadvip Dham, he was the first to do the parikrama of Navadvip Dham with Nityananda. After visiting Navadvip Dham, he went to Benares to study Sanskrit under Madhusudan Vachaspati, so Benares, Varanasi, same place. And after finishing his studies in Benares, he went to Vrindavan and took shelter of his uncles, Sri Rupa and Sanatana. Specifically, he takes shelter of Rupa Goswami. He's with Rupa Goswami all the time, assisting Rupa Goswami with his manuscripts, etc. This is described in the Bhakti Ratnakara. Bhakti Ratnakara is by Narahari Chakravarti. As far as our information goes, Srila Jiva Goswami composed and edited at least 25 books. but it's described he composed 44,000 shlokas. 44,000. Srimad Bhagavatam is
18,000.
18,000. Bhagavad Gita is 750. 750. So 18,000 verses is Srimad Bhagavatam. So Jiva Goswami composed 44,000 glorification Sanskrit verses. And in Varanasi today, Banaras, they have a whole section of the very famous university there just dedicated to the books of Jiva Goswami. So I think there's more than 25 books there. They are all very much celebrated and they are listed as follows. One, the Harinamrita Vikyaran, the Sutra Malika, the Dhatu Sangraha, Krishnarcha Deepika, Gopal Virudavali, Rasamrita Shesh, Sri Madhava Mahotsav, Sri Sankalpa Kalpa Vriksha, Sri Bharvata Shuchaka Champu, Sri Gopal Tapani Tika, a commentary on Brahma Samhita, a commentary on the Bhakti Rasamrita Sindhu, a commentary on Ujjvala Nilamani, a commentary on Yogesara Stava, and a commentary on the Gayatri Mantra as described in the Agni Purana, a description of the Lord's lotus feet derived from the Padma Purana, a description of the lotus feet of Srimati Radharani, 18 the Gopal Champu in 2 parts, and 19 and 25, 7 Sandarbhas. But we normally hear about the 6 Sandarbhas. But 7 Sandarbhas are being mentioned here. The Kram, Tattva, Bhagavat, Paramatma, Krishna, Bhakti, and Priti Sandarbha. Although the first Sandarbha is usually called the Bhagavat Sandarbha, and then it's the Kram Sandarbha, then it's the Paramatma Sandarbha, then the Krishna, then the Bhakti, then the Priti. So generally 6 Sandarbhas are described. After the disappearance of Srila Rupa Goswami and Sanatana Goswami in Vrindavan, Srila Jiva Goswami became the Acharya of all the Vaishnavas in Bengal. For a long time he was the Mahant. Not only was he a prolific writer, but he was a very personal devotee in his own dealings. He would look after Narottam, Shyamananda, Srinivasacharya. He took care of all of these great devotees. Sri Jiva Goswami became the Acharya of all the Vaishnavas in Bengal, Orissa, and the rest of the world. And it is he who used to guide them in their devotional service. In Vrindavan, he established the Radha Damodar temple, where after retirement we had the opportunity to live from 1962 to 1965. This is Bhaktivedanta Swami Prabhupada. When we decided to come to the United States of America. When Jiva Goswami was still present, Srila Krishnadas Kaviraj Goswami compiled his famous Caitanya Caritamrta. Later, Sri Jiva Goswami inspired Srinivasacharya, Narottam Das Thakur, and Dukhi Krishnadas to preach Krishna consciousness in Bengal. Jiva Goswami was informed that all the manuscripts that had been collected from Vrindavan and sent to Bengal for preaching purposes were plundered near Vishnupur in Bengal. But later he received the information that the books had been recovered. So this is all described in the Bhakti Ratnakara. They had a huge wagon full of books stolen by the king of Vishnupur. But Srinivasacharya preached to the king and the books were returned. Srila Jiva Goswami awarded the designation Kaviraj to Ramchandra Sen, a disciple of Srinivasacharya's, and to Ramchandra's younger brother Govinda. While Jiva Goswami was alive, Srimati Janavadevi, the pleasure potency of Sri Nityananda Prabhu, went to Vrindavan with a few devotees. Jiva Goswami was very kind to the Gaudiya Vaishnavas and the Vaishnavas from Bengal. Whoever went to Vrindavan, he provided with a residence and prasadam. His disciple, Krishnadas Adhikar, lists all the books of the Goswamis in his diary. So as I say, Jiva Goswami was the Mahant, very personally involved with all the Vaishnavas serving them, as well as being a most prolific writer and teacher, probably the greatest scholar amongst all the Vaishnavas ever to have lived. The Sahajiyas level 3 accusations against Srila Jiva Goswami. This is certainly not congenial for the execution of devotional service. So Bhaktivedanta Swami Prabhupada is mentioning this just so if you ever hear it, you just know the utter nonsense of it. It's not particularly relishable, but he's mentioning it so we can cast it out. The first accusation concerns a materialist who was very proud of his reputation as a great Sanskrit scholar and yes, this one's true. Sanskrit scholar, and approached Sri Rupa and Sanatan to argue with them about the revealed scriptures. Srila Rupa Goswami and Sanatana Goswami, not wanting to waste their time, gave him a written statement that he had defeated them in a debate on the revealed scriptures. Taking this paper, the scholar approached Jiva Goswami. Where are we? Lost the place. Defeated them in a debate. Taking this paper, the scholar approached Jiva Goswami for a similar certificate of defeat. But Jiva Goswami did not agree to give him one. On the contrary, he argued, debated with him regarding the scriptures and defeated him, flattened him. Certainly it was right for Jiva Goswami to stop such a dishonest scholar from advertising that he had defeated Sri Rupa Goswami and Sanatana Goswami, but due to their illiteracy, the Sahajiya class referred to this incident to accuse Srila Jiva Goswami of deviating from the principle of humility, because Rupa Goswami and Sanatana Goswami were not particularly impressed by this, actually. It happens on 2 occasions in Jiva Goswami's life. This is the first time. The second time was an elderly person. And the second time, actually, Rupa Goswami sends him away. They do not know, however, that humility and meekness are appropriate when one's own honor is insulted, but not when Lord Vishnu or the acharyas are blasphemed. A very good point. When you're insulted yourself, you don't care. I'm just a bag of stool, mucus, bones, blood. I'm nothing. But the other Vaishnavas, I see them as servants of God, and they I will stand up and protect and honor fully whatever has to be done in the connection with supporting the Vaishnavas. I will always do. Are appropriate when one's own honor is insulted, but when Lord Vishnu or the acharyas are blasphemed, one must know what to do. In such cases, one should not be humble and meek, but must act. One should follow the example given by Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. Lord Chaitanya says in his Shastakam 3, Trinadapi Sunichena Tarorapi Surichena Amanina Manadena Kirtanya Sada Hari. One can chant the holy name of the Lord in a humble state of mind, thinking himself lower than the straw of the street. One should be more tolerant than a tree, devoid of all sense of false prestige, and should be ready to offer all respects to others. In such a state of mind, one can chant the holy name of the Lord constantly. Nevertheless, when the Lord was informed that Nityananda Prabhu was injured by Jaga and Madai, he immediately went to the spot, angry like fire, wanting to kill them. Thus, Lord Chaitanya has explained his verse by the example of his own behavior. One should tolerate insults against oneself, but when there is blasphemy committed against superiors, such as other Vaishnavas, one should neither be humble nor meek. One must take proper steps to counteract such blasphemy. This is the duty of a servant of a guru and Vaishnavas. Anyone who understands the principle of eternal servitude to Guru and Vaishnavas will appreciate the action of Sri Jiva Goswami in connection with the so-called scholarly victory over his gurus, Sri Rupa and Sanatana Goswami. Another story fabricated to defame Sri Jiva Goswami states that when Srila Krishnadas Kaviraj Goswami showed him the newly completed manuscript of the Sri Caitanya Caritamrta, Jiva Goswami thought it would hamper his reputation as a big scholar, and therefore threw it into a well. Srila Krishnadas Kaviraj Goswami was greatly shocked. According to this story, he died immediately. Completely fabricated, totally from top to bottom. Fortunately, a copy of the manuscript of Sri Caitanya Caritamrta was kept by a person named Mukunda, and therefore later it was possible to publish the book. This story is another ignominious example of blasphemy against a guru and Vaishnava, Such a story should never be accepted as authoritative. So this is the only place in the world where I've ever read this story. It's only here. I've never read it in any other scripture or reading. It's not in Bhakti Ratnakara or anywhere. One of those stories that just circulate by word and mouth. According to another accusation, Srila Jiva Goswami did not approve of the principles of Parakya Ras. Now this is very common. We've often discussed this point in Brajdam, and therefore supported Swakya Ras, showing that Radha and Krishna are eternally married. This would completely put Braja Prem into a whole nother dimension. Without Parakya Ras, Braja Prem doesn't exist. Braja Prem only exists because Parakya Ras is there. If there was no Parakya Ras, the gopis, they give up everything material, including their husbands, etc. This is the nature of Parakya, of Braja Ras. So this Parakya has to be there to demonstrate this total, more than renunciation, total leaving their bodily conceptions, their identities behind entirely. Actually, when Jiva Goswami was alive, some of his followers disliked the Parakya Ras of the gopis, and it's the same today. If you go in South India, they can hardly accept this idea that Krishna danced with other men's wives, etc. It's a very high level to appreciate. And the gopis themselves are the highest exhibitions of love in existence. And we have to understand that if we're going to follow the gopis. So this has to be very much clarified by the devotees. But many can't accept it. Certainly previously, when Mahaprabhu's teachings were not really prevalent on the planet. They were not really popularized. Therefore, Srila Jiva Goswami, for their spiritual benefit, supported Swakya Ras, just to keep them in the loop of the Vaishnava assembly and association. He knew that he couldn't actually teach this Parakya Ras to them. They were stubborn, just like in South India today, they can't accept it. Therefore, Jiva Goswami, for their spiritual benefit, supported Swakya Ras, for he could understand that Sahajiyas would otherwise exploit the Parakya Ras, as they are actually doing at the present time. Yes, many Babajis, they keep their ladies and thinking that they're actually performing this Parakya Ras in the material world. Parakya has nothing to do with the material world at all. It's only in the spiritual place that this Parakya has respectability. It's not in the material world at all. It's most abominable in the material world. So to act on the material platform, accepting this idea of Parakya, is completely Sahajya. It's totally the bottom, we can say. Unfortunately, in Vrindavan and Navadvip, it has become fashionable amongst Sahajiyas in their debauchery to find an unmarried sexual partner to live with, to execute so-called devotional service in Parakya Ras. My Gurudev used to say the same. Many of the Babajis here are performing like that. Foreseeing this, Srila Jiva Goswami supported Swakya Ras. There's nowhere in the world we can go except outside the association of pure devotees, of devotees who are Swachatiya, Snigdha and Ashraya, devotees who are in the same line. Many Babajis, they don't have, we see, they don't have good living standard, etc. They engage this Parakya Ras amongst themselves sometimes. So that's there. It's also there in the society of devotees. We see in the general sanghas of different devotees. So this sexual behavior, misbehavior, is prevalent everywhere. It's not just in Babajis or Hare Krishna devotees, it's there also. So we have to be very cautious about this and seek the strongest association and take shelter of our Guru in a most dedicated fashion. Foreseeing this, Srila Jiva Goswami supported Swakya Ras, and later all the Vaishnava Acharyas also approved of it. Srila Jiva Goswami was never opposed to the transcendental Parakya Ras, nor has any other Vaishnava disproved of it. He cannot. because he's in our Guru Varga. Our Guru Varga only supports Parakya Ras. It only supports Braja Prem, Braja Ras. And Braja Ras's foundation is Parakya Ras. It must be. The more we understand this Parakya Ras, I mean, the most respected ladies in the celestial world, Arundhati, Anasuya, Savitri, Parvati, all these personalities, they glorify and worship the dust from the lotus feet of Sri Radha, who is considered the paramour of Sri Krishna. So the most respectable ladies in existence worship Sri Radha, who engages in Parakya Ras. Without this Parakya Ras, you have no Braja Ras. You have no Braja Prem. Srila Jiva Goswami strictly followed his predecessor gurus and Vaishnavas. Sri Rupa Goswami and Sanatana Goswami and Srila Krishnadas Kaviraj accepted him as one of his instructing gurus. So this is just very brief, that Bhaktivedanta Swami Prabhupada is giving us a short, brief overview. His desire is to give us this whole Caitanya Caritamrta so we can read descriptions of Rupa, Sanatana, Jiva Goswami, Raghunath Bhatta Goswami also, Gopal Bhatta Goswami will be described. All these 6 Goswamis in great detail to more appreciate the personality of Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. Without appreciating these great sevaks of Mahaprabhu, then we don't appreciate Mahaprabhu sufficiently. But when we dive into these personalities, then we understand the greatness and extraordinary nature of Chaitanya Mahaprabhu himself. So it's paramount that we study these personalities. But as I say, Bhaktivedanta Swami Prabhupada has only given us a very brief descriptions here, but there are so many. Bhakti Ratnakara in particular has been mentioned. So all these descriptions are there. So we'll finish today on verse 86 and continue again tomorrow. 86 tomorrow. Jai Shri Caitanya Caritamrta Ki Jai, Ananta Kota Vaishnava Vrinda Ki Jai, Gaur Premanandi, Hari Hari Bol. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, O Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hari Bol, Hari Bol, Gaura Hari Bol, Nitai Gaura Hari Bol, Hari Bol, Gaura Hari Bol, Gaur Premanandi, Hari Bol. Vanchakalpa Tarubhyascha, Kripa Sindhuvevacha, Patitaram Pavnibhyo, Vaishnavibhyo, Namo Namaha.